prevention pilot program, maybe in a small city. Then the mayor of the city, he's a friend of ours. We've known him before he became the mayor. And he said, let's do it here. And we said, no, it's a city, 1.3 million inhabitants city. And he said, no, okay, design the plan, bring it to me, I'll analyze it, and we will see if it's feasible. So we created the project. Samuca is going to introduce it to you. But basically, what we're doing here in Campinas had repercussion abroad. I've been to Abu Dhabi, and people are interested in what's going on here. It is a pilot project, and as a pilot project, we are carrying it out to generate indicators that will show what are the best alternatives or paths to create successful projects. So I would like to invite Samuel Tiburi Bettiol, known as Samuca. He is dressed beautifully. I will ask him to go to work dressed like that every day. Samuca, apart from Samuca has been working with me for 10 years, and I would also like to invite our people management secretary, Eliane Jocelaine Pereira. Thank you, Jo. Thank you, secretary. You may sit over there. We are performing an initiative that is training 1,000 public officials. She is the one who is the head of people management. I would also like to invite Ana Paula Montagnoli. A round of applause. She is a social worker, and she's going to be here with us. And we also have Mauro Marcelo Ramos, who works in the Secretariat of Education. A round of applause to him. I would like to take the advantage to invite right away two people. No, just one, I'm sorry. Oh, two people, because they're married. And as God says, when you get married, you turn into one person. I will invite Matei Kusir. A round of applause. He will be the next panelist. And why have I invited him? I want you to understand how we found Matei. I was in Kenya, in Nairobi, and the last day of the Congress, and with my wonderful English, I was watching Matei's panel. He started his presentation. I would take a picture of the slides, put it in Google Translate, and then I discovered that he was talking about things that I've never heard about prevention. Once he finished his presentation, I gave him my business card and told him, 2019, I'm going to take you to Brazil. And I invited him to come to Brazil. He came with Sanela, Philip, their children. He's almost becoming Brazilian. They came here in 2019 and prepared a prevention workshop at schools. And what caught my eye was that they are extremely technical people. They are researchers. They have deep knowledge of things, but they are extremely practical when it comes to implementing prevention programs. So they have been our pillars of training in our pilot project. They developed the training at schools, and they developed the prevention initiative within communities. They they carried out an advanced prevention workshop here that that was attended by 45 people, and they are focusing on prevention science, family, and I invited him because of this. So what you're seeing here is a dream that we had. This project is a dream that came true, and I would like to thank Kleber and Eliane, who are from the management secretariat. They are warriors. They're truly warriors. They have been helping us immensely. And the amount of information that is going to result as from this study is fantastic. It will help many other people. And this is the Freemind spirit. We want to share information and take what is good as far as possible. Samuka is going to present everything, and from now on, he is the one who controls the time until we finish the panel. Well, if you don't understand very well, it's the font. It's kind of strange. So I would like to thank you very much for being here with us in the last 2 hours of the event. We are talking about a 30-hour event, and we know how hard it can be. You know, we get tired, and so I'm very happy for having all of you here in the audience. I know that all of you feel like taking everything that you've learned and put it into practice. Everything that we've been learning in the past few years, along with ISSUP, with the international travels, the course teachers and experts, we tried to use it all to create a project. So we tried to combine 3 pillars, 3 important aspects in one single project, and we have results to show you, and the results are positive. Thank you very much for being here with me. As we've already told you, we have always dreamt about creating a prevention program that could measure how successful they were. Here in Brazil, our mission is to help people help more people. And what we want is information. We want to give people information so that they are able to perform their activities in a better way. And we have chosen the city of Campinas because we've always had a very good relationship with the city. And the mayor, who is a doctor, has always knew about the importance of prevention initiatives. So this is why we started discussing the process here. The objectives of the project are to create indicators to measure prevention programs, and we are applying the course in Campinas. Everything that we do is evidence-based, and we started measuring at the beginning, and we are going to collect data in the end as well. All the information will be used to prepare a scientific study so that we have more realistic and efficient information on prevention. Campinas has 1.2 million inhabitants, and we are training 900 people belonging from different areas. They belong to the secretariats of the city: education, health, social security, and management. 2 people from each of those fields of services departments are being trained. The strategy number 1 is our main axis, where we have our 3 main pillars. We focused on research, training, and communication. At the beginning, when we planned the project, we thought it was going to last 6 months. But since a pilot project is really challenging and it was difficult to have people engaged, so we changed the time frame for 1 year. So we started in November 2021, and we expect to finish in October 2022. So we are going to have surveys. There were surveys done before A, B, and C. Research A is a quantitative research on perception of use of alcohol and drugs. Research B measures knowledge and the beliefs of the public officials who are taking part of the sessions. And Research C are focal groups with families about parental skills. We developed this with the Center of Research of Alcohol and Other Drugs of the University in São Paulo, along with professors here in Campinas. So we have 4 different training options and different courses and lectures. The prevention course at schools and communities is already on air. It is an online remote course. It's been done by the 980 participants. The advanced workshop is the course that Martelli was here to teach. 45 people from the different city departments took part in it. We are still going to do science of prevention and media. And we are here in the conference where all the public officials who took part in the courses also were. What is the objective? Is to encourage the legislators to create more laws. We want to leave legacy to the future. We want to encourage participation of the lawmakers. So the initiatives that we've done up until today, we had 4 months training. First, research studies about the beliefs of the professionals who were being trained before and after. And then we are also going to measure the gain of knowledge about prevention and the results in the opinion research. The first is a social demographic chart of our sample. So it's women, white with university education. Here is beliefs and self-efficacy to use action based on evidence to prevent drug use. With regards to beliefs, is how much the professional believe that evidence-based initiatives can contribute to their practice. This figure remained the same because we understand that they already understood that evidence-based initiatives were be successful. With regards to self-efficacy, the average shows how confident the professional thinks they were competent to perform preventive initiative. Before we have 6.31, and after the course 9.31. So we had a gain in confidence of 47%, which is amazing. In the second chart, we talk about normative beliefs about drug use and other drugs on behalf of teenagers. Here, the average shows how socially acceptable they think it is for adolescents to use drug and alcohol. This shows that after the first course, we could see that there's a better understanding on the risks of substance use, and according to the numbers, they accept 3 times less after the training. I start to identify how dangerous it is, the use of drug and other substances. And here is the perception of risk on the use of drug and alcohols. For alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana, people thought that it was extremely risky to use. But after the training program, there was an increase of the risk perception by 15%, which is really, really relevant. Here there's an important piece of information, which is knowledge on the science of prevention. Our objective here was to bring information on prevention and train them. This is when the average changed. In the pre-test, we have 6 correct answers out of 15, and in the after test, it was 13 out of 15, which means 100% gain in knowledge. So summing up everything that I've just told you, training, developing skills changes perception. What we understood is that the more knowledge we have, the more we understand the risk, then we understand them, and we start looking at them from a different point of view. So if we think of risk of drugs overall, it showed that it gets increased. Now this is a research on perceptions among the population. We carried out 109 interviews. 16 of them talked about parental skills. 6 questions were about drug use perception, and 6 questions asked the relationship of and drug use with teenagers. I'm not going to go over the results. It's going to be published in our website. You will have access. I will just summarize what we are talking about. So the parents, they have difficulties in knowing which are the important parental skills. It doesn't mean that they don't want to educate their children. It means that they have difficulties. They don't know what are skills they were supposed to have, what are the skills they have, how can they learn to set limits to their children. And this is how our campaigns are willing to help them. We have a campaign that has been already designed. I'm going to show you. The second outcome is that parents think alcohol isn't dangerous. We are in Brazil, and all over the globe, the perception is the same. We still think alcohol isn't dangerous. And we know that alcohol is the door to all other drugs. Nobody starts using crack. They start, if we don't look at alcohol as, if we think that it's normal, this is where we are wrong, and our research is going to show the impact on people. The media campaign will use the different means traditional media, digital media, and trade initiatives, and everything that we did in our media campaign, which is super interesting. Everything that we built with our media campaign was based on the knowledge that we learned from Dr. Crano. We took his course, we got a certificate, and we used information to create our campaign. And the main focus of our campaign was parental skills. So we created a media campaign. Where did we get our campaign from? How did we build it? We used theory and the logic model. So we used preventive parental skills. It was a logic model. Two-step flow theory. What does it mean? We create a message for the parents. So our focus are parents, but the message has a type of subliminary communication which is secondary and reaches children. So it communicates with both targets. Of course, the focus here are the parents. And we also use the equip model that talks about engaging, questioning, undermining defensive answers, informing evidence, and persuasion. This is the storyboard. We created the family checkup, and I am going to explain to you our storyboard. We are going to advertise this in the media here in Campinas in a few months. So what is the difference between listening and hearing? So we ask a parent. There's a person driving a car talking to a child. The child is in the back a seat, and the father is trying to talk to his son, and the child is wearing headphones. And then we ask the father, do you think your father listens to you? And the father says, look, of course he's listening to me. And then we differentiate hearing and listening. One thing is when your child is playing a video game and you're talking to them and they're just I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she does this all the time. So we are going to show parents that the skill of communication is extremely important. And we are also going to show how important that it is to have moments of conversation when your child is really focused and paying attention to what you're saying. We also designed the other campaigns. This is the communication storyboard, and we are about to start filming this advertisement. So we want to reach results that will enable us to publish a study. At the city level, we will have an event along with the city government. In the federal sphere, we will have an event with Sinapred. And 30 days ago, we've been to Abu Dhabi, and we made this presentation to people from different countries in the world, and it really caught the eye of the audience because it's something very sound. So this was my presentation, and now I'm going to pass the floor to the other panelists. If you want to get to know more about the media campaign we are developing, you have access to them. It's just ask me. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to pass the floor. I'm going to pass the floor to Eliane Jocelaine. She is the Secretary of People Management of the city of Campinas. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a huge pleasure being here. I'm very happy for being here. I know some of the faces here in the audience. I'm very happy for seeing some of you. I would like to thank ISSUP for having invited me. Samuel, thank you. Paulo as well. I'm so happy for being here, developing an innovative project, being able to test a new model in the city of Campinas is a privilege. As Paulo said, our mayor, besides being a public official, he is extremely committed with science because he is a doctor. This is one of the main concerns of our mayor, Dario, which is taking care of the population. So our mayor, apart from the fact that we have a very good relationship with him, the city government wanted public officials to start focusing on drug use prevention. So we, along with ISSUP technicians, were able to perform the training course so that our public servants became more prepared. So we are talking about a new type of organization, and since 2021 we've been sharing it with the city government. From 2020 to 2021 we changed the name. We no longer call it human resources, and we brought a new organizational concept, which is people management and development. So the focus is taking care of public officials, and we want to enhance and improve public officials' engagement, and we want to take care of them. We want them to be better qualified so that they render better services to our population in the city of Campinas. And we had 4 main improvement guidelines. One of them focused especially in drug prevention and drug prevention. So it meant to offer better and sounder courses, better training for public officials, be it through our school in the government or through other partnerships like this one that we are building with ISSUP. When we are doing so that we have more input, method, knowledge, we want to encourage knowledge production so that public officials can actively contribute to the population. We have Ana Paula and Mario here. They represent 2 central public policies: social work and education. And we have another public policy which is the health policy, which is part of health safety. And through this integration, we've established a partnership. So now we have the opportunity of teaching a course with an innovative methodology, and we do believe that this course is going to be more efficient in drug prevention. Another improvement guideline that talks to the topic that we are talking is the environment and quality of life. public officials are important actors. They have to be taken care of so that they are able to perform their jobs, roles. So we are working in two sides. First of all is qualification so that prevention is done in a better way, and the other thing is a very focus on public officials because they are people, and as such they need to be taken care of. Because we also have public officials who do use alcohol and other drugs. So before taking care of others, we have to take care of us. So with this in mind, we implemented the program ELOS here in Campinas. It's focused on drug prevention program designed to public officials. And we also increased the number of public officials that work in the people management and development department, and this improved the results of ELOS program. The results that Samuel has just showed us so how successful this initiative was along with public officials, but it also shows how many improvements we can put into practice for the future. ISSUP gave us so much input, and researchers and well-known academics as well as professionals have been helping us to think how to work in a more effective way. We focus on care and dialogue with families, and we also focus on talking to communities. We have to think about the environment in which people are inserted, and dialogues and bonds are important because they might help them to stop using alcohol and other drugs, but there are bonds that would also prevent people from getting in touch with alcohol and drugs. So we are using a more integrated perspective, and we think that it's more functional in a large, diverse, in a city that is as large as Campinas. Campinas, besides being a metropolis, has its regional specificities that must also be addressed, because each area works in a way, organizes itself in a way, and in order to be more efficient, it's necessary to know the specificities of each community. And we have to develop tools that will allow professionals to really get in contact with the community. There's no reason for having excellent tools that have nothing, that don't communicate with the environment they are going to be applied. We have to get to know the environment. We have to establish dialogue, and the tools have to help us to establish a better relationship with the population and the community. And this is something that is, we have to take the people's reality into consideration. So the government of Campinas has been using this approach. The population is really dynamic, the city is dynamic, the region is dynamic, families are dynamic, so society is dynamic, and in some aspects, economic dynamic. And this is something that sometimes ends up giving more access to alcohol and drugs. So we have to give our professionals a broader point of view so that they can make the best decisions. So these are the conditions that we want to our public officials to have. Mayor Dario thinks alike, and this is the reason why the mayor accepted immediately, promptly, the pilot project, and we saw that we could improve our services. People work for people. Institutions are made of people. We have technology and we must use technology. But behind technology, there are people who developed it and people who improve it. So we always have to base our initiatives and our dialogue taking into consideration that the people are important and that people reflect people. We have to understand each other so that we can perform effective change in where we are, in our local communities. Private institutions are not going to do this alone. Public institutions are not going to do this alone. We have to combine efforts. But the public's power and civil society are putting efforts together to build a better society. We are addressing about a problem that is complex, and it needs everybody, family, communities, and institutions. So once again, I would like to thank you very much. The opportunity of being along with ISSUP, carrying out this pilot project that I am sure it's going to be extremely fruitful. But one of the most important aspects was the engagement of public officials. The success of the initiative was also related with the individuals who are public officials and think they are important. So I would like to thank all of the civil servants that are here in the audience. And once again, I would like to thank for the opportunity of being here. Thank you, Samuel, and thank you, Paulo, for this wonderful partnership and cooperation. Thank you, everyone. Nice. Thank you, Ms. Secretary. Since the first meetings we've been talking about this, you have such a beautiful point of view of this. You turned the process into something huge and important. Thank you, Eliane and Kleber. You helped us a lot. Now I'm going to pass the floor to Mário Marcelo Ramos so that he can share something with us. You would like to show some pictures, right? So we are going to leave the picture here, and you make your presentation, and then we finish showing the other pictures. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy for being here with you. I'm very proud of being able to share what the Secretariat has been doing. Well, I am a friend of Jocelaine, and I really admire her. The work Jocelaine is doing on her department is amazing. In education, we've been working from a different point of view. We have been focusing on prevention. The Secretary of Education, well, the management as a whole has been focusing on this. Joe created a law of restorative justice. I wanted to use a reference that Samuel shared with us. Taking care of people is extremely important for us, and education is essential. And the investment in drug prevention programs has been higher. Secondly, communication in line with listening. People say after the post-pandemic period brought so many problems. I would like to say the following. Bullying, racism, xenophobia has always existed in Brazil and in the world. The question is how we address it. The pandemic showed us how severe it was. And when I talk from my point of view, because I am in the classroom with students, teachers, and parents, I understood that we have to focus on prevention. It's important to understand this. And we also have to remember that schools are important environments, and we have been talking a lot about education in every initiative. You know, there isn't a one-size-fits-all initiative. There's no magic. Either we understand that the problem belongs to everyone, or we are wrong. And society understand education sometimes in a wrong way, because they think education is only the responsibility of schools. When something goes wrong, teachers are to blame. When the results are good, they don't pay compliments to the teacher.
And what we've been saying in the network is we're going to build a different success story if we can treat first the managing team, teachers, students, community, and especially families. Everyone must be engaged in the process, each playing their own part, and then we can use Paulo Freire's experience, Paulo Freire's teachings. And he says there's no such a thing as knowing more or knowing less, but we have our different types of knowledge, so we have to combine different types of knowledge to treat this fundamental problem that we're discussing here. Secondly, our department had already discussed some initiatives after this partnership. We expanded them, these educational initiatives. We already had a training program with local teachers and educators, and after this partnership, the initiative gained momentum. And what is this partnership that we're talking about? When something is added to the guidelines, that becomes a permanent policy in schools, regardless of who's the principal or whatever. So that's fundamental for our Department of Education. We know that it's important to have continuation, and these initiatives are becoming they're now continuous part of our efforts, and that's extremely important. Third, we must discuss the appeal or the attractiveness of this type of initiative, because when you're talking to children and teenagers, drugs, like other topics like e-cigarettes, hookahs, and the children and teenagers are drawn to trends and fads. These things are very appealing to them. For children and teenagers, being rebellious seems cool, So, and when you impose something, it's complicated, they tend to be resistant. So, well, first, we must not take an authoritarian stance. We have to you have to take a different approach. As a father, some of my children are actually around, and I do this at home, right? I walk my talk. And there's a difference between hearing and listening. And when we're talking to our parents, we hear things. When we talk to parents, we hear them say, "Oh, I hear my children. I hear them." But then we do what Professor Rosenberg taught us to do. So instead of hearing, you're going to listen to me. You're going to let's role play here, and then when I tell parents to role play, and then when you do this role play exercise, you see that there are no parts to blame, because nonviolent communication and from this perspective that this we have to think of the needs, of the unmet needs of both parents and kids, and once we have that in mind, we can make some progress. So we're trying to create safe places of care, restoring bonds, conversation about relevant topics. We're trying to promote these things, and the objective of these strategies is to create safe places for conversation with students, parents, students of all ages, engaging all the stakeholders, also everyone in the school, managers, professionals, teachers, counselors, advisors, parents, students, community. We try and bring everyone together through the efforts of our local Department of Education. We listen to them, we see them, we understand their pain without any type of judgment. We have to understand the territories, like Drew said, because Campinas is a big city, and the territories in this city have different particularities. I work in a school that is between two neighborhoods, two districts, one that is a shanty town, and the other that is a large area of prostitution. So how can we deal with that, right? The red light district on one side and a shanty town on the other side. So there are some challenges there that are unique to that area, and we have to keep that in mind when we design our strategies. We have to invite them in, and these initiatives have to be permanent. So the most important thing here is to listen to them actively, with our hearts, with empathy. When you see them and when you actually listen to them, you build bridges and you establish bonds. I could keep talking for hours, but based on my experience in the local Department of Education, one thing I learned, listening is different from hearing, and we have to listen. We're not supposed to judge, point fingers at people. No, we always thought, oh, when I was a child, we did this and it worked. No, it doesn't work, darling. I'm sorry. You have to, especially when you're dealing with children and teenagers. So when a child sees that you are actually listening to them with your heart, and when you show that yourself is vulnerable, they open up. And when we see them, that they open up to you. I had an experience like that on the listener side and on the speaker side, and our mission is to build people by caring for people. And this is what we've been doing in the local Department of Education. There are some very cool experiences being built there, because when you open space for conversations with teachers, managers, children, teenagers, and they feel that that's wholehearted, you can teach them more and learn more from them, and then you can start building something better, something different. And then, dear, if you could show us some pictures of our schools. These are the rounds of conversation that we have. 6th year, 8th year. This is with the school staff, one of our local schools. Seventh year, 8th year. This is pretty much what it looks like. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I have contributed to this amazing event. Thank you very, very much for the event. Thanks, Mario. Thank you for your talk. Please give my love to the local Secretary of Education. I know we're halfway through the project, but there's still a long way to come. Let's keep up the good work and train as many people as possible. And now I'll hand it over to Ana Paula. Ana Paula, the floor is yours. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ana Paula. I'm a social worker. I work in the Municipal Department of Social Work and Social Assistance. She was my secretary once. Can you believe that? So I have an enormous responsibility here. And she said she's over that now. But she was actually not my secretary. She was the secretary so she was my boss. But anyway, I'm very happy to be here. I see so many familiar faces. So I'm very proud to be here representing the Secretariat and the local department. So I thought about what I could tell you and what I could share with you about my personal experience. So I decided to talk about social assistance, social work. I've been here since Wednesday. I tried to watch all sessions since the opening keynote, and I was touched by a lot of the things that I saw here, and I tried to establish a correlation between what we saw here with the social service, with the social work that we do here, with prevention science, and I think I came up with an interesting approach and an overview of what we've been doing in terms of prevention policies, public policies aimed at prevention, and try to plant the seed and show you more about how social workers work and how prevention is addressed in my department here. Okay? So this is a flow chart of what social assistance looks like in Campinas. I won't stay here for too long. This could be like discussed for hours, but it's not the objective here. But social protection overall is everything that a society does in an institutionalized manner or not, everything that is done by a society to protect its members. Over Brazilian history, this is the setup we ended up with. In the beginning, there was support, but it includes labor rights, civil rights, charity, welfare. An important milestone was in 1923 when we had our first retirement or pension law. I don't know if you remember that from history classes. And then from then on, we started building a social security system, labor systems, labor rights, social movements, ending at in the Constitution, the Federal Constitution of 1988, the so-called Citizen Constitution. We talked about And our constitution, it is the most democratic we ever had. Our latest constitution was written with intense people's participation. It sometimes sounds even poetic. And our constitution turns this social protection system into social security, a social security system. And this social security is based on a tripod. This tripod includes healthcare, social pension, social security, proper, and social assistance, as we call it. Today, our social security is guaranteed by the Constitution, and it's based on this tripod: health, pension, and welfare or assistance. We talk a lot about welfare and pension, but welfare is also part of this tripod. And this is guaranteed by the Constitution. Now, briefly, this is the article of our Constitution that provides for that, Article 194, that provides for social security and describes the initiatives by society and government aimed at upholding right-related health rights and other social security rights. And these are the articles. Social security is to be given to those who may need it. Legal prerogatives over history are the Organic Law of Assistance from 1993. Those who came to Dr. Francisco's talk yesterday could see that he talked about our healthcare system, our national healthcare system, which is very dear to us. And the assistance is also. These are recent policies, if we think about them. And then we had PNAS. National classification from 2009 that regulates these services and the welfare that they are to provide. We also have our basic principles: universal care, free care, integral care, whole care, cross-sector initiatives, which means integration of the network with other policies and sectors and equity. And then it's organized in various types: high complexity, basic protection, medium complexity. Today I work with basic welfare, basic social protection, which is focused on prevention, which is the area that is responsible for prevention initiatives. That's what we've been discussing here, prevention, right? And this is how, that's why I could make a link, a connection between what we've been doing here and the work we've been doing locally. So the services in basic welfare include family care, primary care, coexistence and bond building, and basic welfare in households for people with special needs and senior citizens, shelter, community services, development of autonomy. And when we talk about shelter, I know we talked a lot about that already, but it also means listening. It means active listening. It means this holistic approach. We've discussed that. Everyone talked about that already, so I won't repeat it. But by shelter, by welcoming, this is what I mean. Giving this shelter so that you can meet the demands of society. For us, this is extremely important. For us in welfare, this is extremely important. The social impact that is expected from this welfare work includes preventing, and this is where the word prevention appears. It includes preventing vulnerable situations in the jurisdiction, preventing social risks and worsening factors, increased access to services, and improved quality of life, which is also something that our secretary has just addressed. There's specific slide to talk about network articulation because, but this is something that it's a concern of mine, and it's something that many sessions made me think about that. We talk a lot about network articulation. That's a premise for us. I even put this part here in red. Research institutions. We're talking a lot about research here, and there's the Freemind methodology that's supposed to be science-based, evidence-based. Not only Freemind, but other methodologies here. And why is this a concern of mine? I don't remember who was here. I don't know who was here yesterday in the therapeutic justice session, but when he talked about cooperative partners at the base of the pyramid, he showed us a pyramid, and at the base of the pyramid there was he talked about CRAS, and I'm CRAS. Nice to meet you. I represent the CRAS department here, and the same works for cross-sector initiatives in healthcare. So we received from the public prosecutor's office, we receive cases every day to treat, to assist. So this network articulation for us is our butter and bread. Bread and butter. This is our routine. That's what I'm trying to say. My boss is here. She won't let me lie. And it's a joint effort. So when I thought about my what to tell you, I wanted to show you welfare as a public policy, as a constitutional right, and also as the work we do, like on a daily basis. Because when you reach the basis of the pyramid, like grass, I'm grass, right? So this is what I wanted to share with you. And this term, vulnerability, that social workers use a lot, I also wanted to explain the meaning of this to you. Because every time we talk about welfare, we will have contact with this expression, vulnerability. It sounds subjective, but actually vulnerability is a multidimensional concept that refers to the conditions of individuals or groups in situations of fragility that makes them exposed to risks and significant levels of social disaggregation. It's related to the results of any process or any exclusion, discrimination, or weakening process of individuals or groups caused by factors like poverty, economic downturns, poor education, remote geographic locations, and low levels of social, human, and cultural capital. So we're not only talking about poverty, we're talking about territories that do not have some services, some equipment. We're talking about like remote geographic locations, cultural capital, and things like that. We talked a lot about territories, right? Our secretary talked about territories. My colleague talked about territories. Campinas is a big city. There are many Campinas inside Campinas, and this is what I wanted to show you. This is the municipality of Campinas with the regions laid out as we address them. This is not necessarily the same. It's not necessarily the same approach for education and for healthcare, but it's pretty much the same. So for welfare, this is what we have. I'm located on the in the southwest district. This is the area where I stay. That's where my office is. That's where our center is. And when we talk about vulnerability, and we take this approach to Campinas' social vulnerability areas, I remember what Dr. Augusto Cury said in the opening keynote. If you watched it, if you attended it, I don't know if that caught your attention, but it caught mine. He said that 1 out of every 2 individuals has or will develop some sort of psychiatric disorder over the course of their lives, and only 1 will be treated. I don't know if you remember that, but he said that, and that got me thinking. That's such a small percentage of people who will. Is this only because of lack of knowledge or lack of access, right? Because when you look at a map of vulnerability and when we look at regions, when we have an approach like this, I wonder what factors are involved and what forces are at play here. I think we have to think of individuals in a more collective way, and we should have a more collective approach to it. This is the southwest area, just an overview of the area where I'm located. 59,000 people, 25 of this population is in vulnerable conditions. This is the cross where I work, the Nelson Mandela cross. It's on the southwest side. We have 2 other crosses there, and 23 civil society organizations. Here, these are the 2 workshops in which I participated. This is the training program I did with Freemind and ISSUP. This prevention in communities was very interesting for me because it totally relates to our notion of networks, networking. So yes, I could really associate it with the welfare work that we do here. That I found that very, very exciting. This has everything to do with what we do, and I'm very happy to be here. If I couldn't relate to this, I wouldn't be here. That's what I'm trying to say. And only to wrap this up, I think that prevention is done with universal and accessible public policies. Public policies are tools for access, for upholding rights. Therefore, it must be ensured. The partnership between Campinas and Freemind is a great step. It's a great initiative. Training our professionals to assist the population is fundamental, and this scientific methodology is also fundamental. We're very fond of that, and we won't compromise. On that. So I just wanted to show you this because I agree with everything that was said here. I'm very happy to be here, and I hope this project will grow and bear fruit. Thank you. Cool, thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. We didn't bring her by accident, right? Her scores in our training programs are super high, and I think that you can tell how good a student she is. So, I wanted a panel. To wrap this up, I wanted a panel with us organizers, and this one was interesting because it involves many stakeholders. To end this with those who are actually hands-on in this. So we're going to finish this event with a talk on community mobilization. So our next session is just about to start. It's called the power of community, the key to sustainable mobilization based on local evidence. Matei is going to talk to us. Matei, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining us. You can start.
Thank you. I will stay here. I will walk around. I like to walk. It's less stressful. Okay, thank you very much for staying so long with us. It doesn't happen often that I'm a closing session speaker. The last time it happened was in Nairobi together with Paulo. And you know now how this collaboration is progressing. And I'm really honored to be here with you. And also I feel responsible in a way to give you, as a last speaker, something valuable for the future of your prevention work in Campinas and also in other regions in Brazil. This presentation is a joint effort together with my wife, colleague, and best friend, Sanela. She has to take care of our son, Philip, there, so it's not, she's not available to be here with me. But anyway, it would be too crowded if we would both be together at the stage. So it's better that one of us do this responsible work. Okay, this is, we saw this T-shirt in the shopping center next to this Congress hall, and we thought that this might be a good icebreaker for this speech. So we put our son on the slide to say bon dia. Although it's already end of the day and this is not really actual anymore, but still I think it's a good icebreaker. And he's all the time with us these days since we started with training on Monday. So it has been a quite busy week for us, but very pleasant. We enjoyed staying with you here, discussing with you. And also after the Paulo's presentation, we feel quite like a celebrities here in Campinas, although we don't feel it like this. But yes, I feel responsible to give you something valuable also as a last speak today. Just to let you know a little bit, those who don't know us, it has been a long way until since we started. I used to work in the public administration for a very long time, 13 years in different sectors, government office for drugs, Ministry of Health, responsible for alcohol policy, etc., etc. In one moment, I simply had enough of this public administration work, and we established our own institute in 2006 and started with full capacity in 2009. And at that time, the situation in Slovenia in the field of prevention was really not nice. There was almost, or I have to say that no evidence-based prevention programs, maybe except some interventions with some elements of, some evidence-based elements, life skills included in some prevention work in schools. Very poor funding by responsible ministries and municipalities, no quality standards, so very low criteria to get funding, so actually everybody could get funding for so-called prevention work in Slovenia, and also no evaluation culture and no workforce training, etc., etc. So the situation was really not nice, so we entered this field with a mission and vision to change situation in our country. I also, because the title of this speech is about the community, mobilization, and the power of community, I have to mention also that there was a tradition of so-called local action groups in Slovenia. In several municipalities, they established local action groups in the field of addiction prevention, but as I told you already, most of them implemented, I would say, not really effective and sometimes also harmful interventions in local communities. So we started actually with from the scratch. But however, when we started to work, we visited different ministries, different municipalities. We wanted to explain them that they should do more evidence-based prevention. They should bring more evidence-based prevention programs to the communities. And they were almost all laughing at us because they thought, okay, we have a lot of good and quality prevention programs in Slovenia, but how do you know that? Have you ever evaluated any of those interventions? Oh, we don't have to evaluate them. We know people are satisfied with what we do. People are happy, children are happy. So that was the starting point of, they were laughing at us, so we thought, okay, should we continue or should we stop and go back to public administration? We continued to work. So it was a kind of challenge for us. And a huge achievements in the last 15 years, I have to say, when I started to put those of our programs and interventions on the slides, I was quite happy and honored and proud of this progress, and especially about this, which is called prevention platform. This model actually includes or gathered most of evidence-based approaches which we know in prevention science and practice. And we created this approach especially for local communities, for community-based prevention, because we think that the best improvement we can make in the field of prevention is at local level. If we are able to convince local stakeholders to do evidence-based prevention, this will grow from one municipality to another municipality. Also neighboring municipality will join forces and efforts and start doing something evidence-based. So this network could grow and grow and grow, and maybe in some day in the future we can cover most of our Slovenian territory with this kind of approach. So we intentionally developed this model with special focus to local community, to develop local prevention systems. And we started with piloting with several municipalities and developed a generic logic model for this prevention platform model. We are testing this model in each municipality which we enter, which we are invited to develop local prevention system. But it's not my intention here to tell you about this model, etc. So just to explain you how we ended up with this focus on local communities. And before I start discussing some key issues in community-based prevention or community mobilization, which I like more, to say that we have to take into consideration a much wider community approach. Not just focusing on prevention, but also focusing on different areas of risk, behavior, and addiction. Also risk and harm reduction, treatment, social integration, rehabilitation, recovery. All those areas of work are important, also from the perspective of prevention. Because if we look at this from the public health prevention framework, prevention is actually everywhere. Also in the field of recovery, we can see and find some evidence-based prevention approaches. How to prevent relapses, how to prevent people going back to addictions, etc. So if we are using public health approach, we are on the right track. Of course, prevention is extremely important. Probably it's the most important in all these areas. But we are never allowed to forget also about other areas of work, and it should be a balanced public health approach in each community in which we want to develop a comprehensive approach, an integrated approach in the field of risk behaviors and addictions. Also, we have to tackle different risk behaviors at the same time. And focusing only maybe on alcohol, tobacco, or illicit drugs, or crime prevention, or suicide prevention. It is important, of course, but at the same time we have to take into consideration that there are several risk and protective factors which are similar or the same in different risk behaviors. So the focus should be risk and protective factors. So we can tackle and we can deal with several risk behaviors at the same time at the local level. And also, never forget about policies, not just programs and interventions in different settings, but also policies. Because if policies are good and well implemented, that would support our mission and practice significantly. And we will achieve much better results if policies are well implemented, or first well written and then well implemented. Because if, for example, I can give you a very good example from my own country. We have well-written alcohol legislation in Slovenia. It is forbidden to sell alcohol to underage people, under 18 years old, very clearly. Everybody knows about it. Also, supermarkets, gas stations, bars, pubs, discos, everybody knows about this rule. However, when we implemented some mystery shopping activities in different locations, supermarkets, gas stations, bars and pubs, we actually found out that the compliance rate is usually less than 5%. It means that more than 95% of underage people in Slovenia get alcohol without any problem. So it's not the policy, written policy is not the problem, but implementation of this policy is extremely problematic. And it means that our efforts in the field of alcohol prevention are much less effective than it should be if the legislation would be implemented well. This is just one example. There are plenty of similar examples in different areas of policies related to risk behaviors and addictions. So never forget about the importance of policy, written and implemented. As I already told you, based on our work with local communities, it was quite easy to conclude that the communities are the key in the field of prevention. And despite the fact that various governments, various levels of government share responsibility for prevention, the communities clearly have a key role. Why? We work in community. We live in a community. We go shopping in the community. Our kids attend kindergartens and schools in the community. We patronize restaurants, bars, pubs in community. Whatever happens in community, it stays in community, if I may allow to use this Hollywood phrase. Also, the harm and burden of risk behaviors stay in community. And we all feel this, the harm and burden of risk behaviors in our community. So it's actually our responsibilities as local inhabitants, local people, to take care of this prevention stuff as well, from authorities level to each of us living in a community. I know that it's the easiest way to say, okay, let's go to schools and do some prevention in schools. Because kids are there, all the kids are there, so it's the easiest way to do something about prevention in schools. However, many factors are outside school boundaries, and we have to take this into consideration as well. So there should be a balanced approach in prevention, not just focusing on school, but also focusing on family, some parents, evidence-based parents interventions. Media as well. You heard from Dr. Craner how media are important in prevention, that we use them in a quality and evidence-based way. Also, we have to take care about availability of different substances, and that we have police forces, inspectorates, other authorities which are responsible for the reduction of availability of different substances at local level. Also access to alternative activities like leisure time, sports, arts, cultural activities, many other leisure activities for kids and youngsters, and also us adults. Also community attitudes towards different risk behaviors, cultural values. For example, again, an example from my own country, alcohol is treated like something traditional. I'm just waiting that somebody will put UNESCO stamp on the alcohol beverages. That's how traditional alcohol is in Slovenia. So it's tragic, but that's the situation in Slovenia in the field of alcohol. We are a wine and beer producing country. And almost everybody, we are 2 million nations, so we can imagine a little bit more than Campinas city, my whole country. Actually everybody knows somebody who has a vineyard. And whenever we discuss about alcohol, it's a personal issue. And it's the huge challenge in our country to change the attitudes and beliefs and cultural values and norms about alcohol. We struggle a lot, and we will struggle probably until even after our institute will not be there anymore. Also, we have to take into consideration very diverse perspectives and complexities. Influenced by legislation, I already told you, policy, media, corporate interests, the interests of unhealthy industries. They also have interests to keep their profits, to even increase the profits, to sell more alcohol, to sell more junk food, to sell more cigarettes, e-cigarettes, etc., etc. And they are also knocking on the same doors. They also come to visit authorities in Campinas, in Ljubljana, in Slovenia, and in all other cities. They are knocking on the same doors as we are knocking, and come with their own interests, put them on the table and agenda to discuss about their own interests and profits. We have different knowledge and skills about evidence-based prevention. That's sometimes really a huge challenge, because you can easily get some motivated people at local level who wants to do something about prevention. But if the level of knowledge and skills is enough to create some evidence-based local prevention system, sometimes this is a huge challenge. So we have to put more efforts to educate people, to train them, so we are all on the same side of evidence-based prevention. So we all understand prevention in the same way. What is evidence-based prevention? What works, what doesn't work in prevention? So we are on the same line with everybody who are important as a stakeholders at local level. I told you already about the importance of policy measures. So this is really extremely important, because good policy and well-implemented policy could really support our interventions at all levels, in all settings. So if alcohol policy is implemented well, so underage people cannot get alcohol easily, it's much easier for school, for parents, for workplaces to stick with the same messages and rules. This is extremely important. If nobody cares about selling alcohol to minors or obviously intoxicated persons, then parents struggle to set family rules, workplaces struggle to set workplaces rules, and everybody struggles to set some strict rules about alcohol. So that's why policy measures are extremely important. And socio-cultural factors, I already discussed a little bit about it. We have to take this into consideration. If the norms and attitudes of people are against prevention, I can say that, then we have to work on changing these attitudes and norms. And these socio-cultural factors as well, such as putting more efforts in employment, housing, income, education opportunities, leisure time, all this is prevention. Not just going to schools or to families and discuss about different risk behaviors, but also we can be a good prevention professionals taking care of better employment opportunities, better housing, less homeless people, better income of our local people, better education, better leisure time, etc., better infrastructure for leisure time, and so on and so on. So this is also extremely important. This is something new in my slides, and this is a topic of my PhD actually. And why this is so important? Because we always, in prevention, we always stuck somewhere in orange. We are not able and not, I wouldn't say mobilized, but we have no idea how to go to the yellow and green color of this diffusion of innovation model. It means that, you know, whenever we come with some innovative ideas of prevention activities or programs, we get a small group of people, very enthusiastic, going to the schools and families, implement this as a pilot, get good results, and then what? Then usually it stops. There's no critical mass to push this further. Not enough well-educated people and trained people to do evidence-based prevention. Not good enough policies to support us. Not good strategies, not enough funding to continue with this kind of innovations, to put them in place as a regular programs and interventions. We have to figure out how we can go to the yellow and green. And that's our joint task and responsibility, to figure out how we can do it. Maybe just to give you a very, very simple example from the technical field, we all know smartphones, right? We all use them. We are all here. So with the smartphones, we are covering the whole all colors, the whole pictures. But do you remember the starts of smartphones? Maybe some innovators and early adopters, they had smartphones, but we were a little bit reluctant to use them because we don't have enough technical skills to use them. We don't need them. We need phone to call and to write some SMSs. We can still watch television and read newspapers, so why we should use smartphones to read newspapers and watch television on the smartphones? That's how it started, there, in orange. And you see where we are now. So it's possible. Just we have to find the right way how to do it. And we have to learn from businesses how to do it. Because they know how to do it. All the businesses, successful businesses, they know how to do it. So there is know-how and good strategies and tactics how we can get to this, do this last part of this picture. Also, I like to show this olive very much, prevention olive, very much all the time, because it really shows the reality in prevention, globally. No country is outside this reality. We do a lot in prevention, what we know it doesn't work. Or we do also some stuff which we know can harm our target groups. So in the next periods, in the future, near future, we have to focus more on the white spot what we know, that we know works, and put a lot of efforts and investment in this white spot and make it bigger. And also the red spot, we still don't know a lot about prevention, about behavior changes. There's still some lack of knowledge, and so we also need research to continue its work and give us new knowledge, new information about how to change behavior, especially in the era of non-stop progressing and changing, and globalization, consumerism, etc. So the reality is changing all the time. So we as a prevention professionals, we have to be in line with the progress and also adopt some new strategies and new interventions to follow the progress in the society. And we have, at least if we want to start in a way, we have a lot of good tools to follow. Especially, I have to mention this UNODC WHO international standards, which are a basis for developing strategies and policies and interventions in the field of, also in a community level. And we see in the international standards are really structured well, based on the developmental stages, so in which developmental stages and what kind of interventions work in different developmental stages, and also by setting. So we can easily see what works in community. And what is the most important here to see and to read is community-based multi-component initiatives. It means that communities can do pretty much everything what is written here on this slide. At the community level, of course. Communities and community stakeholders are responsible to implement, to develop evidence-based prevention programs and policies in schools, in families, workplaces, health sectors, everywhere. It's actually the communities, you can see the communities are the most important in the field of prevention. And what is written in the standards, I will not go into details. I hope this presentation will be available for participants as well, so you can read also what is effective with regards to community initiatives. But I would like to emphasize one or two issues which are written here, which means the training and resources in the communities are extremely important. So the training, what Freemind and ISSUP Brazil is doing here, to put a lot of efforts into training and education, this is the right way to do it. This is also in line with standards. So we have to improve knowledge and skills at local level to implement evidence-based prevention. This is really, really an extremely important thing. Also, to improve the culture of evaluation, we have to establish collaboration with researchers, with universities, so they can help us in monitoring and evaluation. I'm not an expert in monitoring and evaluation. I know only the basics of monitoring and evaluation. But I collaborate with universities and research institutions, and they know how to do this. They help us to do it. They collaborate with us in evaluating our prevention interventions and policies. So those two things, I think, are the most important in these slides. Also, there are several other available tools and approaches which we can use to build evidence-based prevention system at the local level. From different, I don't know, specific community-based approaches like communities that care, which is the model we use in our training programs and also in practice. But there are others as well. Prosper model, Katka model. There are several trainings available, manuals available, and registries of best practices also available, like Blueprints Program Registry, Exchange, this is a European evidence-based prevention program registry, and several others. So there are tools and approaches available. We just have to use them on a regular basis to improve the situation in prevention. Another hot topic, very important, is advocacy. Sometimes we're stuck in our offices and say, okay, we put a lot of efforts, but nothing changed. Authorities does not listen to us. Nobody listens to us. So how we can proceed with our work and to put more evidence-based prevention into place? So advocacy is needed. There is the growing need of advocacy knowledge and skills in our society. We have to become more relevant to policy and decision makers as a professionals. We have to start knocking on their doors. We have to be present in the parliaments, in the city councils, in the city halls, in different hearings and meetings of different committees responsible for health, social affairs, internal affairs, policy, etc. So we have to be ready to go wherever is needed to go to speak about evidence-based prevention, to advocate for evidence-based prevention. This is also what I like to put on my slides, like weapon against mass destruction. We know risk behaviors are mass destruction, right? They cause a lot of harm and deaths and injuries, etc. So advocacy could be a strong and powerful weapon against mass destruction. And there are several good examples, especially I have to emphasize the tobacco industry. What we did in tobacco industry in the last 20 years, this is a huge improvement globally. Many countries adopted very strict tobacco legislation, especially Slovenia. So Slovenia is probably one of the top 5 countries in most restrictive tobacco legislation, thanks to strong advocacy in Slovenia. Why this is essential, not just for professionals like practitioners, but also for scientists and researchers as well. They should become also more relevant to policy and decision makers, not just jumping from one study to another study and giving lectures at the university, but going out to media, to the parliament, to the government, and tell them about the scientific findings and what they find in the different studies and research. So we can get to the point of better prevention-related policies and practice, long-term sustainable funding, and also education and training programs of prevention workforce. And maybe, do I have 2-3 minutes more? Okay. Few slides. Just to give you some idea what might be the key topics of the prevention future. This is a slide which shows a resolution on early prevention. It has been adopted in March this year by consensus. More than 40 member states of Commission on Narcotic Drugs adopted this resolution. It was initiated actually by our institute and by the Slovenian government. Why we initiated this resolution? Because when we look at what is going on in the field of prevention, what we do in the field of prevention, most of our activities and programs focus on adolescence and adulthood, but very little focus on early stages of our lives, before adolescence. And we have to put more efforts. We have to put more efforts in early developmental phases. Even before kindergarten and early school, before parents become parents, in early childhood, and so on and so on. So this is why this resolution is so important, and this is a political document, and the government signed this document. Also Brazilian government signed and supported this document. So it is a moral obligation for the governments to put more efforts and more investment in early prevention activities. And And you can see how much we can do in early prevention. A lot of available evidence-based interventions in these early developmental stages, before adolescence. And we put too much effort, not too much, but probably most of the efforts goes to adolescence. Why? Because in that period, most of risk behaviors appear. We see them. But why waiting until risk behaviors become visible? We should invest more in earlier stages. That should be one of the future focuses in prevention, also especially at the local level. And implementation of these standards together with this resolution, it's really relevant, especially at local and regional level. And another issue which I want to mention in this final presentation of this conference is this one. I was quite impressed when I saw this publication published in 2019 by US National Academies of Science, Engineering and Medicine about promoting positive adolescent health behavior and outcomes. Why I was so surprised? Because we saw at the Institute, we saw this box 1.2, a definition and dimensions of optimal health. We know that there have been discussions at WHO, World Health Organization level, and also by different scientists in public health, that there should be more focus on other dimensions of health, not just physical health, but also social and emotional learning, etc., mental health, occupational health. So we know about it, but you know, in this guy, Dr. Michael O'Donnell, he actually created this definition already quite a long time ago. And this is from 2009, but the definition itself is pretty much, it's older, it's from 80s or early 90s last century. And now in 2019, prevention science discovered this concept as one of the key concepts of prevention future, and the future emphasizing in prevention, research, and also practice. So most of our activities, the same as in regards to adolescence and adulthood, are focused on physical health. So most of things we do in prevention are focused on physical health. There is a lack of focusing on social and emotional health, spiritual health, intellectual health. So the idea of this definition is to balance those dimensions in prevention activities. So focusing, not forgetting about physical health. Of course, we will continue to focus on physical health in the future. But we should add more on social and emotional health, spiritual health. It doesn't mean only religious groups, etc. But also we have to create a society with more love, with more hope, with more solidarity, peace, empathy, etc., etc. So a lot of work in front of us, also from the community-based perspective. And this is also an interesting slide because whenever we finish some training and education with Brazilian professionals, we feel, we see pride and power, and people are really enthusiastic, and we are really happy about it to be part of this process and the journey, and we hope we will continue with this journey and see even more pride and even more power here in Brazil in the field of prevention. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, no, it's from Paulo. Thank you, my friend. You know, we are very appreciated for everything. You're going to use? I say it in Portuguese. Ok. Matei, obrigado, viu? Você sabe o quanto a gente aprecia.
Thank you, Matei, very much. You know how much we like this partnership, and we have been learning a lot together, and I'm sure that in the future we are going to be able to do much more things. We are going to establish much more partnerships between Brazil and Slovenia. Paulo, wrap up the... We're done! No, the next year's conference is starting. Since you stayed, I'm going to give you a gift. We are going to take a picture, and it's going to picture that I am going to use to advertise the ending of the Congress. In 2014, in the second Freemind, I felt something along with Father Haroldo when we were setting up the auditorium. So let's play this song. Don't put the wrong song. Don't play the wrong song. And so come over here and let's take a picture.
Não pula em cima, senão cai. Pula aqui embaixo. Vamos lá. Vai lá, gente. Vamos. Vem. Vai. Vai lá. Quem mais? Um agradecimento especial ao Unify, Marcelo Guerreiro, nosso grande amigo. Todos pessoal. Gente, eu quero fazer um... Abaixa um pouco aí, Jonas. Vem cá. Ó, abaixa um pouco, Jonas. Um agradecimento muito, muito especial à minha equipe. Samuel, Gisele, Gabi, Karina.
Thank you all for joining us. It's been an amazing experience, a great time. I learned a lot from you. I hope you have all learned something too. Thank you so very, very much. Let's keep the energy going and let's smile. Say cheese.
Sorriso.
Say cheese.
Happy. Todo mundo fica mudo quando vai tirar foto, acho que sai som. Engraçado. Vamos lá, pode falar. Mamãe, tô aqui. Papai, tô aqui. Vamos pra cima! Vamos pra cima! Vamos pra cima! Ó, vamos lá. Uma palavra para vocês para finalizar o congresso é o seguinte: se a gente for dar o primeiro passo para fazer qualquer coisa que a gente queira fazer e quiser ficar pensando como é que vai terminar, a gente nunca dá o primeiro passo. Acreditem, Deus proverá. Um beijo no coração de todos vocês.